Before we get into the return to school, let me get your take on what's happening in the economy right now, because the GDP is just out and it shows a growth number of 2.5%, but that's down from 3.25% in the third quarter. What's going on? Things have decelerated.
Well, they have, but the overall economy is strong. And as I just heard Dagan, I think, pointed out, and she's absolutely right, that's before the tax cuts even took effect. We had some massive hurricanes, unprecedented amounts of damage, but also destruction that occurred in so many places across the country.
Wait a second. All of this is before the tax plan. We're talking about the fourth quarter. So the tax plan went into effect at the beginning of 2018.
Right,
so, yeah.
but I'm saying expectations are that will actually go up. It's still much higher, obviously, than President Barack Obama's economy, in which he said 1.9% was the new norm. We're on the way up. Most economists say we're going to be hovering close to potentially 4% as this year continues on, and that's where we expect to be. The economy's strong. Businesses are coming back to this country. As you well know, consumer confidence is at an all-time high, and we expect that to continue to grow even more into the new year.
Well, in terms of economic policy, what are the president's priorities at this point, Hogan? Because I know that he wants to work on Dodd-Frank, and he's been rolling back regulations in a big way since the start of his presidency. That should add further spice to this market. What's the priority in terms of economic policy in the coming 6 or 8 months?
It will, but look, let's talk about those regulations and their rollback. A big way kind of doesn't even begin to describe it. Look, he said that he would cut 2 regulations for every 1 that he put into place. He far exceeded that, and he's cutting 22 regulations for every 1 that gets put into place. Obviously, that spurs on consumer confidence, but also security and stabilization in business growth, and that's what this president is all about, as you know. And the rapid turnaround of this economy is no coincidence. It's because we have someone in office who understands the economy, who's going to push to make those tax cuts permanent for individuals, as he did with the corporate tax rate cut. But there's a pattern emerging here with this president, and that is he's taking on topics and issues that haven't been addressed in the better part of 30 to 40 years. He's coming in, and in a year's time, he's accomplishing record-setting things in record-setting time, and he's growing this economy, something that the government, quite frankly, has been crippling under the last 8 years.
Right. So are you expecting movement on Dodd-Frank in the coming few months?
We'll see. I don't want to get ahead of what the president's going to say or do, but we obviously know that that's where the president wants to be. He wants to eliminate all hindrances to economic well-being in this country. He wants to prop up the middle America, as you saw with the tax cuts. It didn't just affect the corporate tax rate that people have been talking about for 30 or 40 years, but it also cut taxes for the middle-income people in this country.
Yeah.
And that's where he's going to continue to go.
Well, I mean, we're getting a report this morning that the president is looking to roll back the Volcker rule, for example. And this is a rule, obviously, where proprietary trading, firms cannot do proprietary trading and just trade for customers, but not their own. So is that something that's going to be changed over the near term, the Volcker rule?
Again, I can't get ahead of what the president's going to say or do. He's going to talk also about trade today. He's going to make some announcements on that as well. That should impact the economy, too. Because, look, for far too long, what we've been talking about in this country, politicians, as you know, for decades, go out on the campaign trail, and what they say is we want free and fair trade.
Right.
Well, the free trade's always there. It's the fair part that politicians seem to ignore once they get in office. And this president comes in and says, no more. This has been dogging our country for decades. It's going to stop now, and it's going to stop on my watch. And so we'll see what he announces later today.
On trade, is the U.S. going to re-enter TPP?
Again, I can't get ahead of what the president's going to say or do, Maria. I appreciate you pushing me that direction. But the president has some ideas of how to fix this economy. He's done a masterful job so far, and we expect that to continue.
Hogan, the president obviously has been spending a lot of time on efforts to try to come up with solutions for gun safety, school safety, really. The president is hoping to jumpstart some real action on background checks or other plans. Tell me where that stands right now and what does need to be done in terms of background checks.
Donald Trump is not just the president of the United States. He's also a father, and he's also a grandfather. And what he wants is what everybody in this country wants, which is safety and security for our children when they go to school. Well, that's just the bottom line. Legislation can't just feel good. It actually has to do good. And that's what the president's trying to get to the bottom of now when he's talking to all the relevant stakeholders. The country was privy to a meeting he had with grieving families from the Parkland shooting, other relevant stakeholders from around the Washington, D.C. area, parents, teachers, students,
right?
Just pouring out their heart. And they were angry. They were upset.
It was a good idea to do the listening session. Yeah.
Right, but they were also hopeful that something would get done. So the president then went and met with local law enforcement. Then he met with governors, people who are on the front lines of all these issues and how they can be impacted at the local level. Because as you know, state and federal partnerships are key if we're going to actually accomplish something here. But when he meets with the congressional leaders today, from individual congressional districts, bipartisan, bicameral, they've got to come up with solutions that actually protect children. We can't just talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
The American people deserve better.
So is he prepared to put forth an executive order bypassing Congress to raise the age limit for getting a gun?
Well, it depends on what happens after the talks, and it depends on what Congress decides to do, and also what the local areas decide to do as well. The president sees that there's obviously a gaping hole in security. There was a systematic failure here at every level of government, whether it was the FBI,
right,
whether it was the county sheriff, and then the deputies sitting outside the school that were trained and had a gun and still didn't go inside to protect those kids. Obviously, failures exist. The audit continues, and once we get that information, the president will make recommendations this week on what he feels should be done to protect students in our schools.
What do you make of all these companies wading into this issue? Dick's Sporting Goods this morning says that it's no longer going to sell automatic-style weapons. It's going to require consumers to be 21 years old to purchase any firearm, regardless of the law of the land, Dick's Sporting Goods says. What do you make of the private sector making these changes? Is that legal?
Yeah, I don't know if it's legal or not. I'm not an attorney, but it doesn't seem to match up with federal law. But, I mean, look, we've got states all over the country deciding to thumb their nose at the federal government and the laws on the books, whether it's California and sanctuary cities, for example. But look, these businesses have made decisions based on pressure from outside groups. I guess they have the right to do that. I guess groups have the right to protest. But the bottom line is we have 6 million gun owners that are members of the NRA, that are law-abiding citizens. This president supports the Second Amendment, supports the NRA in their efforts to keep our country safe. And we have a constitutional right in this country to keep and bear arms. And so if a business decides that they're going to kowtow to pressure from outside groups, I guess they can do that, but then they're going to have to suffer the consequences should the other side come out and put pressure on them as well.
Hogan, let me ask you about that big announcement from the president yesterday, announcing that his digital strategist, Brad Parscale, will run the Trump 2020 campaign. Why did the president make this announcement now, tell everybody he is, in fact, running for re-election?
Well, I love you keep asking me questions I really can't talk about. That's a campaign issue. Well, it's a campaign issue. I have to refer you over to the campaign to have that discussion. But look, the president is going to have a myriad of successes to run on in the 2020 election. As you know, the Heritage Foundation just put out a survey basically saying that this president has already accomplished 64% of his agenda. Ronald Reagan, the standard bearer of our party for a long time and of government success for the Republicans, was only at 47% at this time. So as I mentioned before, it's record-setting accomplishments in record-setting time for Donald Trump. And whoever the campaign manager is for this president, they'll have a lot to push moving into the election cycle.
All right, Hogan, great stuff. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.